Hi, Pisces, and welcome to your February 2024 horoscope. Don't be fooled. I know February is a short month, but it still packs a punch. All of the planets are affected in one way or another during the month of February. So, whether you're somebody that's more affected by Mars or Neptune or Jupiter, we're all going to have one day or another or multiple days in February where we have some strong emotions. So, whether happy or sad or disappointed. So, yeah, there's definitely quite a bit to talk about. Let's get into what you can expect in the month ahead. On February 6th, Venus squares the nodes and the Sun trines and sextiles the nodes. The nodes are teaching all of us collectively how to set boundaries and how to stop compromising on things we don't want to compromise on. On this day, your ego might especially be feeding off of all the boundaries you've been setting, and it might be sort of pushing you to set even more boundaries, even though there might be places where they're not really needed. But at the same time, your relationships are reminding you that you're a human and you find relationships important, and that sometimes relationships require compromise. So this is a really interesting day to try and strike a balance between the two. We continue the next day with just as many transits. On February 7th, we have the Sun squaring Uranus, Venus trining Uranus, and Mars sextiling Neptune. Because Mars is in your 11th house, you might be taking some actions on this day in regards to the communities that you're part of that feels sort of as if it's something you channeled from a source above. It feels really aligned, it feels really in flow, and something that's for the betterment of you and the community around you as well. But these actions from those on the outside might look a bit weird. To them, you might look like you're a bit out of the box or a bit strange for doing these things. And that's okay. One of the things that I see here, especially because Venus is trining Uranus, is that those close to us, those that we have meaningful and deep relationships with, do also see this weirdness and eccentricness. And they love it and they accept it and they know that it's truly who we are and what we're meant to be doing. On the 9th of February, there's a new moon in Aquarius in your 12th house. Pluto entered your 12th house on January 21st. Take a look if anything happened on that date that was quite triggering or quite strongly emotional. And reflect on if there's anything that you wish happened differently. Perhaps you wish you reacted in a different way or said some different things. This new moon is an amazing opportunity to have a new start in that area or around that issue. On the 12th of February, Venus is sextile Neptune. Venus is in your 11th house, and with Pluto there for a while, like 15 years or something, you've really been learning quite a few things about community, about belonging, about the groups that you're a part of, about your network, connecting with people in a meaningful way. And now that Pluto has left that house, and now that Mars and Venus are also leaving that house, it's almost as if you're integrating the things that you have learned. And especially because Venus is sextiling Neptune on this day, it's almost as if you finally can see the silver lining of perhaps the hard things that you've been through. You can see the spiritual benefits through the lessons that you've had to learn, and you're able to honor them for that as well. On the 13th of February, Mars enters Aquarius, or your 12th house, and conjuncts Pluto. Mars and Pluto is a lot of energy. And for you, because it's happening in your 12th house, it might be a lot of mental energy. It might be feeling like there's just a lot happening in your mind. If you can at all, I'd recommend to do an activity that you know puts your mind at rest and allows you to turn off your mind for a bit. Keep in mind that you don't spend this energy thinking about things that are not meaningful or not important to you, overthinking things that, as a matter of fact, are not going to matter to you 5 years from now. 3 days later, on February 16th, Venus also enters your 12th house and conjuncts Pluto as well. So during this time, it might really be your relationships that are triggering you in regards to your thoughts. Perhaps you're overthinking things in regards to your relationships. Perhaps something somebody said is, you're mulling it over in your head over and over. And it might especially be bringing up certain fears that you have, and you can't stop thinking about them as well. Be compassionate with yourself, both on February 16th as well as earlier on the 13th. Pluto just entered your 12th house and it's going to be there for a while. So you have years to learn these lessons, to integrate them, to really understand what they're trying to teach you. And I think sort of the only job for you during these 2 days is just to observe, be present, feel the emotions. And later, when things feel a bit more calm, and not as turbulent, then you can spend some time to reflect and see if there's anything you learned during this time. On the 19th of February, the Sun enters Pisces, or your first house. So the Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So I want you to consider from February 19th onwards as if it is December, the last month of the year. For March 20th, we're going to start a new year because we're going to start new with the first sign of the zodiac, which is Aries. I want you to use this last month to reflect on the last year, and specifically reflect on what you want to let go of in regards to your identity in the upcoming year. Are there clothes that no longer suit you and who you are? Do you need to change your hair? Do you need to adjust the way you speak, the things that you do? All of those things, just reflect, and there's no need to take action yet. Pisces is not very much an actionable sign, but I think reflection is a really suitable activity right now. On the 21st of February, Venus and Mars are conjunct in Aquarius in your 12th house. Venus is passion, Mars is action. So it could be also quite an emotionally charged day, and especially again within your thoughts. So again, turn to an activity that brings you some rest in your mind, some calmness in your mind. And because both Mars and Venus sort of hit Pluto as they entered your 12th house, I do think that this day might still have some of those Plutonian themes and triggers from earlier in the month as well. On the 24th of February, there's a full moon in Virgo in your 7th house. During this full moon, Venus is also squaring Jupiter. The sun is shining a bright light, and if there's anything you've been unclear about in regards to your relationships, that light from the sun will give you some clarity on this day. And it might be a type of clarity that makes you take a deep sigh of relief, makes you feel happy, makes you want to celebrate. One thing to just keep in mind is that when we have Venus squaring Jupiter, there can be a possibility of sort of overindulging. So just keep that in mind as you celebrate. 2 days later, Mars follows suit and also squares Jupiter. When we have Mars square Jupiter, there is a tendency to make impulsive actions, impulsive decisions, and really carry them out. Especially if it's in your 12th house, Pisces, it could be any sort of ideas you have around your mental health, around getting in a state of flow. So I would say, I'm sure maybe the idea is amazing. One thing that I would recommend is just wait a couple of days, maybe wait a week, reassess. If that idea still feels amazing, then you can go ahead and do it. On the 28th of February, the Sun conjuncts Saturn in your first house. Saturn entered your first house last year, March 2023. And since then, you might have been really struggling with figuring out who you are and how you want to show up in the world. It might feel like all of a sudden none of your clothes really represent who you are. And that might be difficult, and it might not feel very nice. And as a result, on this day, especially because the Sun is conjuncting Saturn, it might feel quite bleak. The future might feel quite bleak. And it might feel like these responsibilities and this sort of harshness is just weighing down on you too much. I want you to keep in mind that that's just a trick that Saturn is playing. What Saturn wants is for you to keep showing up day after day, to keep putting in the work, because Saturn just wants that. It wants pure grit and patience. And finally, Pisces, we close off the month on February 29th, the same way we started it, with a conversation between Venus and the nodes. And this time, Venus is trining and sextiling the nodes. So if we integrated the lesson from the beginning of the month, we reflected on our relationship to setting boundaries and compromising. We did our best to bring it back to balance. Then we're ending off the month with a sort of really a deep realization that actually setting boundaries in relationships can lead to deeper and more meaningful connection. So Pisces, there's a lot happening in your mind in February. And there's a lot of questioning you're doing about who you are and how you're showing up in the world. And that sounds quite heavy. It doesn't sound very easy. And I really hope that you can find some time in February to do an activity that puts you at ease and brings you some calm. You know, perhaps it's going out to nature, perhaps it's being creative, perhaps it's reading. And I want you to reflect, you know, as a Pisces, you're amazing at that, to reflect on the higher spiritual lessons in all of this, and the fact that all of it is actually for your own benefit and for your own growth and evolution as well. I hope this forecast helps bring you some comfort, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to make sure you catch the March forecast as well, then make sure you subscribe. I hope to see you again soon.